Good.
Good morning. Roll call, please.
Regent Adidam,
Here.
Regent Thevaraju, Regent Herbin, Regent Schroeder, Regent Clare, Regent Kenny,
Here.
Regent O'Connor, Regent Schaefer,
Here.
Regent Shear, Regent Stark,
Here.
Regent Whites,
Here.
Regent Wilmot.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you. For all in attendance, please notice that the compliance with the Nebraska Open Meetings Act, the board has posted act near the south entrance of the boardroom. This time I'd like to take a look at the minutes and we'll entertain a motion to approve. Motion been made. We need a second.
Second.
Thevaraju, Herbin,
Yes.
Regent Schroeder, Regent Adidam,
Yes.
Regent Kenny,
Here.
Regent O'Connor,
Yes.
Regent Schaefer,
Yes.
Regent Shear, Regent Stark,
Yes.
Regent Whites,
Yes.
Regent Wilmot,
Yes.
Regent Clare. Motion passes.
President Gold.
Thank you, Regent Kinney, and good morning and welcome to all of you. My remarks will be very brief, but just to set the stage for the reason we're convened at this special meeting of the Board of Regents of the University of Nebraska this morning. We have been working for the last almost 6 months now, since almost my first day as the president of your university, on a strategic planning process. And I would just quote to you from the very top of the documents that have been circulated and reviewed at several of our board meetings and committee meetings. It reads, I quote, "We lead the world in transforming lives and communities to an extraordinary future through our enduring commitment to creating and sharing knowledge, inspiring and nurturing discovery, and through forging and sustaining relationships built upon trust. We do this as a university community by building upon our legacy of excellence and our commitment to a future of the extraordinary." Derivative to these words, we have created 5 foundational pillars and are in the final stages of drafting 15 or 16 different strategies which are out for public comment across all of our faculty, staff, communities that we serve, as well as within our leadership teams. Part and parcel of that process has been a commitment to review, to discuss, and to update policies and procedures, including the Board of Regents bylaws, the Board of Regents policies, and the Board of Regents standing rules. And that process has been on schedule, and I am deeply grateful to all of the members of the Varner Hall community, to our chancellors, and to many, particularly in our General Counsel's office, who have provided wisdom as necessary to help provide updates. Many of these sections have not been revised since the early 80s, and just the terminologies, existing names of programs, titles of individuals, etc., have been significantly changed and now are undergoing a comprehensive review and update. However, because of recent communication from the Department of Education, and there's a copy of that communication at the place of all of you here, dated February 14th, 2025, we recommended to Regent Kinney and to the Board of Regents that a special meeting be convened to address bylaws and policy changes that may need to become necessary over the next weeks to months. Now, this letter has been circulated not just to us, but of course to all higher education institutions across the United States. It has been reviewed extensively by our General Counsel's office, and I will tell you that almost every member, if not every member of our Big Ten peers and many others, are convening necessary meetings of their boards, their regents, their governing councils, their faculty groups, student groups, etc., to address the requirements articulated in this guidance provided by the Acting Assistant Secretary of the Department of Education. It is in this regard that our General Counsel's Office, our leadership team, and I am asking that potential changes to the Board of Regents bylaws and policy be presented to the board today for your review and consideration, and certainly not necessarily for action, as it is well known that any action on bylaws takes a two-agenda cycle. That is to say, it is put out for information purposes only, and then at a subsequent meeting of the board, it is re-reviewed, and then the definitive action is taken. Policy changes, however, are quite different. They can be addressed and they can be enacted by vote of the board at a single meeting. However, it is my recommendation that given the fact that these potential policy changes in response to the Department of Education messaging and the bylaw changes be considered together at a future meeting of the board. Hopefully at those future meetings, a more comprehensive review of all of our bylaws will be made available for review and for decision as well. And just to note that at the same time, we are looking at all of our campus policies and procedures, all of our individual college, center, and institute policies and procedures to be sure that there is no concern about compliance with the requirements that were set out within this communication, and hopefully within the timelines created within this communication, given the potential actions that may result for lack of doing so. So, Regent Kinney, that concludes my remarks, and I turn the program back to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Gold. Are there any questions? Members of the public were notified that they must contact the corporate secretary with a notice of their intent to speak on an item that is not on our agenda. We were contacted by 4 individuals wishing to speak on a topic not on today's agenda. Amanda? Ed? Up to here. Ted Hammond. Ted, everyone has 3 minutes.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I am a professor in the Department of Teaching, Learning, and Teacher Education at University of Nebraska-Lincoln. We've been getting headlines in the Lincoln Journal-Star, the World Herald, 1011 News, et cetera, because we have been host to a federal Supporting Effective Educator Development Grant called Project Raíces, and I wanted to position you all to sort of clarify what the grant is and what it isn't. It's germane to the sort of whole larger concern about DEI and so forth. Project Raíces has been a grant, $5.25 million, counting both the Kansas State University side and the University of Nebraska side. $2.8 million of that has been the University of Nebraska side. A quarter of the University of Nebraska side was a local match. $2.1 million was from the federal government. It has 4 components, the biggest and most spectacular part of which is 16 full scholarships for pre-service teachers. And the grant pulled from Lincoln High School, South Sioux City High School, Wakefield High School, Fremont High School, and Schuyler Central High School. The criteria were, did you participate in a youth participatory action research project as a high school student, and then were you interested in becoming a teacher? There were no criteria beyond the geography of where kids went to school. It's part of a Grow Your Own initiative. We have a teacher shortage in the state, K-12. One of the ways you can place teachers who are likely to stay and likely to succeed in schools is if they go back to where they're from. So it's a program that's risked being mischaracterized. I wanted just to position you all to know what it is, to be able to defend it if somebody sort of says, why is the university doing something like that? It's part of our work. Part of our work is to prepare teachers and place teachers that are in service to the state of Nebraska. So I just wanted to be in a position to let y'all know what it is, and appreciate your time and attention.
Thank you. Crystal? Crystal Garcia.
Good morning, board members. My name is Crystal Garcia. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Educational Administration, speaking on behalf of myself today. But as someone who studies higher education and teaches on the history of higher education, I am here this morning to sound the alert and urge you all to pause response to recent executive orders and the Dear Colleagues letter. Current attacks, and they are attacks, please make no mistake, on higher education are unprecedented in modern times. This is not business as usual. These include attacks on university funding via NIH indirect cost cuts, attacks on university funding via research censorship, using a list of banned words to block or defund unwanted research, such as within the NSF, a working plan to dismantle the Department of Education, the Anti-Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Executive Order, and now the Dear Colleagues letter. Again, make no mistakes. These moves do nothing to strengthen our educational systems. Rather, they directly erode our values to provide educational supports to ensure that all students have equal opportunities to succeed, and our mission to uphold academic freedom. If these attacks persist, and if our administration does not band together with other higher education leaders across the country facing the same challenges, we are not alone. Nebraska is not alone. If we do not work together to push back, higher education as we know it, and most importantly, our students will suffer tremendously. We cannot support the dismantling of research-informed student supports, curriculum, and institutional policies. Diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts exist to address inequalities and to provide a fair chance for all to succeed. The rural Nebraskans, the students of color in Nebraska, the white students in Nebraska. These are supports for all students in Nebraska. A quick search of racial inequalities in education in Nebraska will illuminate that these disparities exist in our state by race and ethnicity. Guidance from the Dear Colleagues letter stops educational institutions from addressing these disparities, and as a result would prevent our public land grant system from carrying out its mission to serve the people of our state. But not only is this guidance harmful to our values and mission as a public university, but very importantly, the Dear Colleagues letter and the anti-DEI, or what more aptly would be named as the anti-civil rights executive order, is not law. I repeat, this is not law. Furthermore, a federal court has already granted preliminary injunction against the anti-DEI executive order. There is legal evidence that the Dear Colleagues letter will not be upheld and is unconstitutional. If there doesn't even have to be a law to be in place for us to allow the federal government to intrude on our values as an institution, how can we expect to protect our institutional freedoms in the future? I already have colleagues that are afraid to speak out in meetings like this because what we are moving towards is not a community of support in which educators and students can flourish, but one of surveillance, of fear, and wondering who or what will be the next target.
Thank you. Your 3 minutes are up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bertie, did you make it yet? Trying to make it on time, but she must not have. Standing rules further provide that anyone desiring to speak concerning an item on the agenda for this meeting may do so, regardless of notice. Is there anyone here who would like to address the board? If so, please come forward, identify yourself, and complete the sign-in sheet. You have 3 minutes to address the board.
Hello, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Niehaus. I'm the Department of Educational Administration at the University of Nebraska, and also a member of our campus AAUP chapter. And I wanted to speak to you all about the proposed changes to the policies and bylaws.
Pull your mic up, please.
Oh, sure. Is that better? Thanks. And I wanted to encourage you all not to take any of these actions based on the Dear Colleague letter from the Department of Education or the recent executive orders around diversity, equity, and inclusion. As a memo circulated by 21 distinguished legal scholars has noted, neither the Dear Colleague letter or the January 21 executive order are based on sound law, and institutions should not interpret either of these as requiring the elimination or curtailment of existing DEI initiatives. They give 4 main reasons, which I will read to you briefly. First, the January 21 executive order expressly recognizes the right of federally funded institutions to engage in their own First Amendment protected speech and does not apply to academic programs or classroom teaching. Second, common DEI initiatives are lawful under prevailing federal civil rights law and Supreme Court precedent. Third, neither the executive order nor related communications change existing federal law. And this is particularly important when it comes to the policies and bylaws of the Board of Regents. In fact, the executive order and Dear Colleague letter concede that DEI initiatives are not inherently unlawful. And fourth, the constitutionality of the executive order is currently being litigated, and my understanding is that it has been enjoined by a federal judge. Among other arguments before the court, evidence suggests that the executive order rests on and further pernicious stereotypes about women and Black people. I provided this memo from these legal scholars to UNL campus leaders and to the University General Counsel's office. I should have thought to bring copies of it all for you all today, but I'm happy to provide that if you would like. But given the legal uncertainty of the executive order and Dear Colleague letter, we should not be acting in any way that is contrary to our values as an institution because we're afraid of potential illegal enforcement actions taken by the federal government. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Bondi. I also study higher education. I wanted to speak about proposed changes to the bylaws. I study universities and colleges and how they work and how to create environments that are good for student learning. While the recent executive orders and Dear Colleague letters have suggested that DEI is inherently bad, decades and decades of research actually show the contrary. They paint a different picture. They have a significant positive impact for everyone across the campus and across society. I imagine you want those positive impacts to continue in our society like I do. For example, having diverse learning environments and teams has been shown to promote innovation and problem solving. Diversity and equity initiatives support retention and graduation rates of all our students, which bolsters the Nebraska system and our state. This is all important because as you consider making changes, we don't want to erase those things from our policies. We don't want to erase the visibility of diversity in our state. We don't want to reduce the number of quality students that we have at our institution. We don't want to reduce the innovation that we're able to produce here. Like President Gold was saying, to be a leader, a global leader, we need the best and the brightest in our state. Peter Lake is an attorney who studies higher education, and he urges higher education administrators to consider what's best practice for student learning and the institution in making decisions. Yes, consult the attorneys, but decide what is best for the students based on expertise specific to higher education, and then work with the attorneys to figure out how to do that. We don't need to guess what will happen to higher education in the Nebraska system if further reductions of DEI efforts and visibility of them in our policies are declared by our own institutional leaders. Decades of research tells us, expect the limited number of staff and faculty in minority groups, Nebraska has one of the lowest levels in the Big Ten, will be expected to double their efforts without increased pay. You know, DEI is characterized as being really unfair. That sounds unfair to me. University of Nebraska will not provide students what the research indicates will meet their needs, and then retention and graduation rates will decline. This is what decades of research tell us. I know the Dear Colleague letter is scary, promises to cut our federal funding, but it is not law. Since colleges and universities have been around for about 300 years, 230 of those years, they've been only meeting the needs of mostly white, non-disabled men. It makes sense that now, in more recent decades, we have more initiatives, often referred to as DEI, to meet the needs of the depth and the breadth of our student body. The mandates in the recent months do not change the needs of the students.
Your 3 minutes are up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Good morning. My name is Daryl Hatch Tokaimaza. I also study higher education. And a statement I also drafted here to be able to relay my thoughts. I urge the board to reconsider the decision to preemptively remove diversity commitments from university policies and bylaws. The change is not required under current law, nor is it justified under the Department of Education's Dear Colleague letter. People have spoken to this. It's the agency's opinion, one that courts have not upheld, and is an example of federal overreach, honestly, that we need to stand up against and be true to our values that we've stated over decades and back to the history of the university. Even under the DCLs, the Dear Colleague letter's flawed interpretation, there is no mandate to purge diversity commitments. The DCL suggests race-exclusive or race-preferential policies could be suspect, but our current policies already do not mandate such practices. Race and gender preferences in public employment, education, contracting have been prohibited in Nebraska since 2008. The board's proposed changes are a voluntary overreaction to politically motivated federal overreach, not a legal necessity. What would this preemptive retreat achieve? Ultimately, what it would send is a clear message to students, faculty, research partners that this university will not stand up for them. It tells prospective faculty and students, especially those, for example, from outside Nebraska, from who we might want to welcome here, that this is not a place that they can expect support or institutional courage. It really is a disastrous position to take when universities nationwide are facing a demographic cliff. Nebraska's own communities are changing, and if this university wants to remain relevant and competitive, it cannot afford to shrink its commitments to the future it must serve. Beyond recruitment, these policy changes threaten the university's mission and viability in many ways. The Carnegie classification for engaged campuses is an example, which UNO and UNL, I know, and I'm not sure about UNK, are actively working to reattain, depends on community engagement, experiential learning, public partnerships, etc. These efforts cannot be sustained without policies that affirm diversity and inclusion. If Nebraska's universities abandon these principles, they will be seen as less competitive, less engaged, less committed to their public mission, making them less attractive to students, funders, partners, and students alike. The law does not require it. Even the DCL does not require this. I urge the board to reconsider these proposed changes. Thank you.
Anyone else? Birdie? Thank you. You made it just under the wire. You'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize for being tardy. We have a dean search, and I'm on the committee, so morning. My name is Birdie. I'm a faculty member here. I'm disabled. I'm a cancer survivor. I'm queer. I'm also the grandchild and great-grandchild of Jewish immigrants. So my work relates to supporting people with disabilities, including people from a range of backgrounds. So I'm here. I don't know exactly what you're planning to do related to DEI, but that's what I'm here to speak about. Foreseeing there could be some issues related to our ethics and my work. So I have 3 reasons that I think we shouldn't be removing efforts, policies, procedures related to diversity. 1, it's illegal. 2, I believe it's unethical. And 3, it's a slippery slope. It's illegal in that we have laws that combat discrimination for all different populations that are passed by Congress, this signed by the presidents and upheld by the judiciary. So, we have these laws based on centuries of discrimination, both covert and overt discrimination, and because we have data on different demographics and disparate outcomes related to those belonging to different groups, such as poverty, which is higher for women, higher for people who aren't white, higher for disabled people, queer people, higher for rural people versus suburban people. And these laws are there for a reason because of the data. When you have more than one, when you're in more than one of these groups, these outcomes are compounded. These laws are there. They're not intended to favor groups, but they're there to level the playing field. So I think we need to uphold those laws. It's unethical, in my opinion, because of these disparities. I am bound ethically by my profession to serve all people and provide research-supported supports to address these disparities. Faculty here are responsible to serve all Nebraskans via our land grant mission. Faculty research disparities across disciplines, the causes of those disparities and how to address them so that, again, we can have more of a level playing field. These issues cut across our research, our teaching, our service. We really can't ignore them. I address...
Thank you. Your 3 minutes are up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Being that no other person wishing to speak, I now declare the opportunity to speak for public comment closed. I'll now ask President Gold to walk through the items on today's administrative agenda.
Thank you, Regent Kinney. Just as a preference, to reiterate what I said earlier, it would be our recommendation that these potential policy and bylaws changes be considered, but be considered for future action. Of course, it is up to the decision of the board as to what to do with the policy changes. The changes to Board of Regents bylaws would need to be provided for information, but only to be acted on at a subsequent board meeting. However, this would give an opportunity for time for critical stakeholders as well as members of the board to review potential changes and also to put that into the context of ongoing temporary restraining orders and other legal actions that are pending on many of these perceived mandates and requirements. Having said that, if I may, I will now provide a brief description of the Regents' policies that have been worked through for your consideration. There are 4 of them. They are contained in Section 6A1 of your board book. Regents Policy 3.1.3 concerns equal opportunity employment. Regents Policy 5.2.1 concerns admission standards. Regents Policy 5.7.4 concerns tuition levels. And finally, Regents Policy 5.8.4 concerns non-resident tuition remission for children of alumni. Again, these changes, recommended changes, have been reviewed by the leadership of the university, of course, in context with our general counsel's office, and they're here for your review. Secondly, if I may, under Section 6.A.2, references Section 3.0 of the bylaws of the Board of Regents of the University of Nebraska. And this is provided to you today for information purposes only. However, any opportunity to provide content or feedback now or into the future before our next formal board meeting would be appreciated. That is the context of the administrative agenda and the information item for your consideration today, Regent Kinney.
Thank you. Any questions? Being no other business, then without an objection, I declare us adjourned. Thank you.